They say you always remember the day your life changes. I remember mine started with a burnt coffee and a spreadsheet that finally balanced. I was finalizing the Q3 projections, real clean numbers, elegant stuff, when the Slack ping came through. "Hey Greg, can you pop over to the FlexPod for a quick sync?" No subject line, no salutation. Just that. From Mia, I stared at it for a second. The FlexPod used to be the executive conference room before they turned it into a beanbag jungle, with pastel whiteboards and zero lumbar support. Now it smelled like kombucha and had motivational quotes in curly fonts taped to the glass walls. Progress. I checked the time. 6:47 a.m. No one else would be in yet, except maybe the janitorial crew or the overnight SRE team. I saved the file, stood up, and stretched. My name's Greg Marston. I'm 52 years old, or 52 years young, as our HR consultant once chirped, before she was replaced by an AI that sends mindful gratitude surveys. I was, technically still am, I guess, the Senior Director of Strategic Pricing at LyraSpark, mid-sized SaaS firm. We sell enterprise-level engagement platforms. It's boring until you realize we move 8 figures annually, and my model is what turned that red ocean into a profit island. 15 straight years of gains. I didn't need a calendar to know this wasn't a quick sync. When I walked into the FlexPod, Mia was already sitting, or rather lounging, on a beanbag that looked like it had swallowed her whole. Hoodie up, phone in hand, wireless earbuds in like she was waiting for a DJ set to drop. She didn't look up when I stepped in. "Hey," she said, "just need a sec." I waited. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. She finally put her phone down, sort of. Still in her hand, thumb twitching. The oat milk latte next to her had condensation gathering, like it was nervous too. "So," she said, exhaling like this was hard for her. "We're making some changes to the culture. A lot of the interns have, well, they've raised concerns." I blinked. "Concerns?" "Yeah, about the environment." She tilted her head slightly, as if trying to see me through a different filter. "About some legacy work styles." I was still standing. She didn't offer me a seat. Not that there was a proper one. "You're referring to deadlines, pressure, metrics, that kind of energy." She said it like she was describing an allergen. I stared at her, trying to grasp the shape of this conversation. "You're saying the interns have an issue with my work ethic?" "Well, not just you," she said quickly, "but you're kind of emblematic of it." Emblematic. Like I was a Confederate statue or something. "We're trying to create a space," she went on, "where neurodivergent folks and people healing from burnout can feel, you know, safe." Safe. I'd survived 2 recessions, 3 acquisitions, and a founder who once threw a chair across a boardroom. I'd restructured our billing tiers so cleanly that even our auditors called it surgical. And now I was being handed my walking papers by a 24-year-old in socks that said, "Not today, capitalism." "Mia," I said, voice low and even, "did you call me here to fire me?" She winced slightly, like I'd used a slur. "I wouldn't say that," she said, "but we're sunsetting your role. We've found that traditional pricing frameworks perpetuate hierarchies that no longer serve our brand values." I let that sentence sit there in the room for a few seconds, like smoke from a tire fire. "And this was a group decision?" I asked. "The board empowered me to make necessary personnel shifts aligned with our cultural North Star," she said, lifting her phone again, tapping something. "We really appreciate all your contributions. Truly." I couldn't tell if she was texting or typing up my obituary. "We're offering 3-month severance," she added, "plus a 6-week access period to our mental wellness platform, Root Bloom." I didn't cry, didn't argue. I'd heard about this kind of thing in trend pieces and think pieces and Twitter threads, but experiencing it firsthand was like being told by your smart fridge that you no longer meet the criteria for milk consumption. I extended my hand. She looked at it like it might explode. Then she reached out, fingers limp, wrist disengaged. That was that. I walked out, past the kitchen where someone had left an open jar of vegan Nutella, past the digital gratitude board blinking, "You are enough," in soft pink font, past the hallway where my framed employee of the quarter photo still hung. March 2011. Outside, it was too bright. The street felt different, smaller, louder, like I'd been kicked out of some simulation. I stood on the curb for a while, not ready to walk to my car just yet, not ready to call my wife and tell her it was over. 15 years, hundreds of millions in net gains. I'd outlasted 5 COOs, and now I was tossed aside like a fax machine in a paperless office. I watched as someone came through the revolving door behind me. An intern, probably. Cargo pants, AirPods, holding a smoothie labeled "Stress Reset." The door spun again, and again, and again, and I just stood there, watching. The first morning after they canned me, I woke up at 6:30 like muscle memory. Didn't even need the alarm. I stood in the kitchen in my robe, pouring coffee into the same chipped mug I used at the office for 15 years, world's okayest data whisperer, and realized I didn't have anywhere to be. So I opened my laptop and started haunting. Old habits die hard, especially when they're all you've got. I checked the Lyra Spark stock first. Flat. Not a disaster, but no pulse either. Next, LinkedIn. No formal announcement. Just a vague post from Mia. Proud to be building a more inclusive pricing philosophy that prioritizes well-being over burnout. Deceleration, Jatchern's soft metrics. Lead with care. I stared at it for a long time. Inclusive pricing philosophy? Soft metrics? I'd seen TikToks with more economic rigor, but the post had 700 likes and 40 comments, mostly from people whose bios included things like radical rest advocate and hustle disruptor. I typed a comment, deleted it, typed it again, deleted it again. The company website looked the same, at first. My name was gone from the leadership page, obviously, but they'd also rewritten the description of our pricing strategy, where it once said, predictive tiered optimization model, my baby. It now read, adaptive access framework, designed by a cross-functional coalition to decolonize value measurement and foster equity in monetization. I nearly choked on my coffee. That would have been funny if it hadn't been the model I built from scratch over 2 years. I'd flown across the country pitching that framework to enterprise clients in boardrooms full of dry markers and fake smiles. Now it was apparently born from a coalition, like it was drafted by the UN. I sent 3 emails to HR that day. 1 bounced, the other 2 got no reply. I texted Jordan from accounting, left unread. Even Sarah from admin, who once crocheted me a scarf during all hands, ghosted me. But on day 5, I got a DM from one of my old analysts. I won't name him. He still has a mortgage and a nervous system to protect. Hey, just so you know, they're still using your pricing model. They just renamed it Adaptive Access. It's still yours, just sanitized. I stared at that message until my screen dimmed. Bitterness, that's what they call it. But bitterness is just the truth that doesn't taste good. They fired me, told me my methods were culturally incompatible, then kept the exact model that made them solvent through a pandemic, 2 mergers, and a crypto-adjacent tax audit. They didn't replace it. They just rebranded it with enough buzzwords to make it sound like a TED Talk wrapped in a weighted blanket. But it got worse. Someone sent me a link to a TikTok, an intern from Lyra Spark, lip-syncing to a clip from The Office, overlaying slides from our pricing deck. My pricing deck. She captioned it, "When you decentralize capitalism and dismantle grind culture, but still hit quarterly goals." 22,000 likes. My bullet points, my ROI tiers, my churn thresholds. But now they were memes. I was being erased in pastel. I called my wife, Dana, told her about it. She paused for a second, then said, "Maybe it's a good thing, Greg. You were miserable." Was I? You were grinding yourself into dust. Even when you weren't working, you were still working. Remember when you did revenue projections during our anniversary dinner? At the table? That was one time. It was 3. She wasn't wrong. I'd been sprinting on that hamster wheel so long I started thinking the wheel was me. Maybe I did need a break, but I wanted the chance to walk away on my own terms, not be tossed aside and turned into a cautionary tale about hustle culture. For the next week, I watched everything. Press releases, podcasts, earnings calls. Mia did a 15-minute interview with a startup blog, talking about radical transparency and revenue storytelling. I don't know what that means, and I've read every pricing journal published since 2004. Still, no word from the board. I sent one last message to a contact on the inside, an old sales VP who owed me at least 2 favors and a bottle of bourbon. Asked him to confirm, was my model still being used? He replied 2 hours later. They changed the title, changed the font, but the bones? All yours. Still calling it the Spark Curve, internally. Spark Curve. That was my internal name for it. Not public, not documented, which meant they weren't just using it. They were still relying on it. And yet, I was gone. No credit, no attribution, no legacy, just deleted. I thought about letting it go. Thought maybe Dana was right. I could decompress, learn how to fish, take up woodworking like a man in a retirement ad. But something in me twitched at the thought. This wasn't about ego. Not really. This was about truth. If they wanted to erase me, they'd have to bury me deeper, because I was still here. And now, I had time. 3 months after I was fired, Lyra Spark started to bleed. At first, it was slow, almost imperceptible, like a leak in a ship no one notices until their ankles are wet. But I saw it coming from a mile away. I'd been watching, quietly, from my home office, where the whiteboard still had my final revenue projection written in dry erase. It had turned ghost gray with time, like a monument to something no one wanted to remember. The cracks started in client success. They'd overhauled the whole department, cut the seasoned reps, promoted a vibes-first manager with a background in wellness retreats, and rebranded the entire operation as Client Joy. Instead of focusing on retention or churn analysis, they were now sending customers digital affirmation decks and asking them to rate their brand intimacy. Within weeks, I started getting calls. First, it was Bill from the Phoenix account, an old-school COO who didn't trust email and always signed his contracts with a Mont Blanc. He called my personal line. "Greg," he said, "we just got a renewal email with animated GIFs and a Spotify playlist." Let me guess. It included the phrase, "capitalist detox"? He sighed. What the hell's going on over there? They fired me. Pause. Ah. That was all he needed. We spoke for 10 minutes. By the end of the week, I had my first consulting check in the mail. Then came a stream of others. Quiet, off-the-record outreach. Clients who felt abandoned. Some didn't even know I was gone. One VP from a legacy account asked if I was on sabbatical, like I was out discovering myself in a yurt somewhere. When I told him the truth, he asked if I could audit their latest pricing tier rollout. "I'm not with Lyra Spark anymore," I said. Exactly. I started rebuilding. Clean, surgical work. No office politics, no pastel PDFs, no beanbag meetings. Just models that worked. Math that told the truth. Results. And I loved it. Meanwhile, Lyra Spark was unraveling in real time. One of their interns, probably the same one who turned my churn analysis into a TikTok, posted a viral clip that made the news rounds. She stood in front of the company logo in a cropped hoodie and said straight-faced, "Deadlines are a construct of the patriarchy. We're doing safe capital now. Soft allocated flexible equity. It's a vibe-based economy." The clip hit 2.4 million views in 3 days. The stock dropped 8% overnight. I laughed. I hadn't laughed like that in months. It came out of me in a single burst, sharp, cathartic, almost joyful. Dana looked up from her crossword and said, "Oh no, what did they do this time?" I showed her the video. She didn't laugh. She winced. "That's performance art, right?" "Nope. That's your husband's replacement philosophy." The board scrambled. They held an emergency meeting. I know because I got the meeting summary forwarded to me by someone I hadn't heard from since the Christmas party, where we accidentally locked a junior VP in the stairwell. The summary was a blur of corporate panic. Significant deviation from core revenue metrics, unclear communication protocols, reputational volatility. Translation: the children had set fire to the house and were now roasting marshmallows over the flames. Later that night, I got a call from Ethan Trammell, one of the original board members, old school Yale, ring still shiny enough to blind you in the right light. He sounded tired, really tired. "Greg," he said after a long silence, "we may have miscalculated." I didn't say anything, just let him twist. "We're reevaluating leadership," he finally admitted. Translation: Mia's in over her head. He didn't outright ask me to come back. Not yet. Too much pride on both ends. But the subtext was clear. And suddenly, I felt something I hadn't felt since the day they handed me my walking papers. Purpose. I wasn't looking for revenge. I didn't want to burn the place down. I just wanted to rebuild what they'd spent the last quarter trying to dismantle in the name of empathy and engagement metrics. So I kept working, consulting, coaching, advising, quietly, efficiently. I watched my old clients stabilize. I watched some new ones jump ship. The Spark curve, my model, still running under a new name, was failing because no one understood how it actually worked. They'd kept the skin and gutted the brain. One CFO emailed me and said, "Your replacement spent 10 minutes explaining how pricing should feel like a hug." I told him we don't pay our vendors in hugs. I replied, "You want results, not retail therapy." He wired the consulting fee that day. I'd always thought of myself as a builder, a systems guy, but now I realized I'd become something else, an anchor. In the chaos of their rebrand, I was the thing clients remembered, not the slogan, not the soft pastel decks. Me. And there's power in being remembered. They might have deleted my name from the website, but it turns out people still knew who built the foundation. And I was just getting started. The email came in at 7:12 a.m. Subject line: Strategic Touchpoint Opportunity. I almost deleted it out of instinct, but then I saw the sender. Ethan Trammell, board member, old guard, Yale ring, whiskey breath. The kind of man who once told me I was the last adult in a room full of toddlers. I opened it. "Greg, we're conducting a confidential review of our strategic trajectory and would value your input on structural resiliency and stakeholder trust. Would you be open to a conversation this week?" Translation: the kids broke the engine, and they want Dad to come take a look. I waited an hour before replying, not out of pettiness, but because I was elbow deep in rebuilding a subscription model for one of my new clients. an e-learning startup that wanted actual revenue, not just chakra alignment. When I finally wrote back, I kept it short. Happy to speak. I assume you don't need beanbags in the room. We scheduled the call. No Mia, no HR handlers, no interns live tweeting. Just a few suits in damage control mode. I kept my camera off. Let them do the squirming. Ethan opened. Greg, I won't waste your time. We've made missteps. I leaned back in my chair, sipping my coffee. Which one? The deadlines are colonialist campaign, or the part where you let someone with zero P&L experience dismantle your revenue stream because they read Burnout Rebellion on Audible? Silence. Then some nervous chuckling. Like they wanted to be in on the joke, but couldn't tell if they were the punchline. Look, I said, I'm not here to gloat. But if you want an honest assessment, you let a parody of leadership take over. Mia was running a vibes festival, not a company. More silence. Then they asked for specifics, so I gave them specifics. Charts, growth metrics, client churn before and after Mia's leadership, screenshots from clients who'd left because they were emotionally confused by the renewal process. A quote from one executive, "We're not allergic to results. We just didn't sign up for group therapy with invoices." I showed them a graph comparing the old pricing model, the one they'd erased my name from, to their current adaptive framework. The line dipped like a ski slope after Q1. Then I showed them my new consulting roster, the clients I'd recovered, the new revenue models I'd deployed, cleaner, faster, scalable. I didn't ask for a job. I didn't have to. They saw it. Mia caught wind 2 days later. I know because I got a cease and desist in my inbox, written in Comic Sans, which had to be a joke, but I'm honestly not sure anymore. The letter accused me of unethical usage of proprietary frameworks developed during my employment at LyraSpark. I read it, printed it, lit a match, and dropped it in the sink. Then I emailed back the original filing for the Spark curve, complete with patent timestamp, author signature, and legal documentation. All mine. Dated 7 years before she was even out of college. Then came her next move, a thinly veiled threat of a defamation campaign. She said I was smearing the brand, that my consulting was intentionally confusing the market, and that my actions were harmful to emotionally regulated ecosystems. I forwarded her email to Ethan, attached a few screenshots of a client text chain where Mia had threatened to cancel their contract because they repeatedly asked for ROI metrics and refused to adopt a REST-positive billing cycle. I included a note. This is the hill she's dying on. Your call. The board called me the next morning. No Zoom, just Ethan, voice hoarse. We want you back. Interim CFO. 6 months. Full control. No strings. I didn't answer right away. Not because I was unsure, but because I hadn't let myself even consider the possibility. Walking back into LyraSpark felt like picking up a broken mirror. You're bound to bleed. But I asked myself, why did I build the model in the first place? It wasn't just about profit. It was about clarity, accountability, structure. I believed in the work, still did. So I asked for the terms in writing, reviewed every clause, scrubbed for vague language like collaborative spirit or cultural agility. When the papers came back clean, I said yes. Not out of ego, not because I needed to prove anything, because I finally saw what was possible again. Real leadership, rebuilt from the inside. No slogans, no detox metrics, just work that mattered, people who wanted to do it, and enough power to make it happen. My wife raised an eyebrow when I told her. Back to the wolves? Not this time, I said. This time I brought my own teeth. And this time, I wasn't going to let anyone rename my legacy. Not again. No press release, no ribbon cutting, no awkward welcome bag with a branded mug and an inspirational quote. Just a badge that worked again, a parking spot that hadn't been reassigned, and a quiet nod from the front desk security guard, the same guy who used to slip me extra coffee vouchers. Mia was gone, pursuing activism full-time, according to the internal memo. A few departments clapped. Most didn't say anything. The Slack thread was polite, half-hearted. A few emojis. Someone dropped a gif of Gandalf returning to Minas Tirith. It was deleted within the hour. The office itself felt different. Not better, not worse. Just hushed, as if the building wasn't sure if it should breathe again yet. People watched me from behind their monitors as I walked the halls. Not with fear exactly, more like quiet recalibration. What kind of leader was I now? The same guy who got fired? Or someone else? I didn't blame anyone. I didn't need to. The company had already been punished, by itself. No firings, no revenge tours. I made it clear from day one. We were moving forward. No beanbags would be burned in effigy. Still, the silence was thick that first week. Until an intern, maybe 21, maybe still in school, came up to me in the break room. He had on an empath leadership pin and mismatched socks. He looked nervous. Just wanted to say thank you, he mumbled, for stabilizing the chaos. I nodded. You survived it? He smiled. Barely. I joined to learn about business, not to get yelled at for asking about KPIs. That broke the ice. Slowly, more voices followed. People who wanted to work, not just exist inside a brand, but actually contribute to something measurable, meaningful. They didn't care about office politics or LinkedIn theater. They wanted to build, so I let them. I opened up the planning sessions, pulled in junior analysts, product assistants, even some customer support folks who had been buried in the old regime. We rebuilt the pricing model together, version 2.0 of the Spark curve. We called it Horizon Structuring. It was leaner, more flexible, tied into behavioral triggers and predictive contract trends. Smart, human-centered, but rooted in data, not ideology. I listened more, spoke less. That part surprised me. I used to fill every silence with metrics. Now I let others take the pen. And I made changes for myself too. My old corner office? Gone. I gave it to the data team, turned it into a collaborative analytics war room. I moved into a smaller space on the east side of the building. Simple desk, one chair, one plant. Window faced the sunrise. At 7:30 a.m., the light came in clean and warm, like an apology I never asked for. Some mornings I just sat there with my coffee, not doing anything, just existing. That used to be unthinkable. Wasted time, I'd have said. But now I saw it differently. Space to think is not a luxury. It's oxygen. The company started to recover. Slowly. We weren't breaking records, but we were breathing again. Clients returned. Revenue stabilized. The stock inched upward, quietly. There were no viral TikToks, no hashtag campaigns. Just numbers that finally made sense. People asked if I was coming back full-time after the interim CFO term ended. I said no. 6 months was the deal. 6 months would be enough. I wasn't chasing power anymore. I'd seen what happened when people made legacy their personality. They ended up like me. Or worse, like Mia, pretending to be the antidote while becoming the poison. One Thursday evening, I stayed late. Everyone else had gone. The lights in the building dimmed down to night mode. I sat by the window with a glass of bourbon from a bottle Ethan left in my office. A quiet thank you with no card attached. The skyline glowed outside. Soft, golden. I could see 3 towers that Lyra Spark had helped fund, indirectly. The hotel near the riverbank used our guest analytics platform. The e-commerce hub downtown was one of our first pilot partners. The media firm 2 blocks down used our behavioral insight dashboard to target their ad spends. I didn't need a plaque or a statue. This glow, this city, This quiet hum of industry was enough. Legacy isn't what you build, it's what survives you. The bourbon tasted like calm. I sipped it slowly, watching the streetlights blink on below, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel angry, or tired, or cheated. I just felt done. Not defeated, not resigned, free. And that, I realized, was the real win.